coming up on the Lead Ministry Podcast.
You would batch it all into 1 4-hour time block and you would get that all done. And now you go, check mark, done for the month, right? And the reason you do that is because when you batch something together like that, you put your brain and your focus into a mode in which you're just doing that task, and it brings efficiency to the task.
And now your host, Josh Denhart.
Hey, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of the Lead Ministry Podcast. We're grateful that you're here. Happy New Year. We're starting another one, 2025, and may this be the best one for you. And by the way, part of the way that it can be the best one for you is through some ministry efficiencies. I get it, right? The new year is here and everybody's like, new year, new me. What's your word? Well, I have no idea. I don't usually pick a word for the new year, to be honest with you, but I'll tell you this. Efficiency is always something that I rethink through and relitigate in my life at the beginning of a new year. Well, Bill, good to see you, buddy.
Yeah, good to see you too.
Happy New Year, man.
Yeah, Happy New Year, 2025. I can't believe it.
I can't believe it either. I really can't believe it. I'm in my 25th year of ministry, which, by the way, like props to us for getting married in the year 2000.
Yeah.
Makes it kind of easy to go, how long you been married? 25 years, you know what I mean?
That was a good idea. I like that.
Yeah. Hey, good job, Josh and Sarah. Way to fall in love at just the right time. No, it's good. So we are here in a new year, and I do believe that a lot of people think through goals. They think through, it's a weird thing. It's kind of odd, right? Like right after the most wonderful time in the year, you got Christmas, and then you jump into the new year, and there's like everybody thinks, it's so weird how the calendar can just have this effect on us. I don't know what it is, but I know that it is.
Yeah. It's like arbitrary, right? Like we just decided.
Exactly.
That, and it's a new year. I need to think about how my life's going to be this year.
Yes, exactly. Well, speaking of how to do it, we're talking today about time hacks for busy ministry leaders. Now, Bill, we're going to lean into you quite a bit on this episode. I am a time hack kind of guy, but you are a time hack kind of guy as well. So we have 10 of them, if you can believe, and there may even be a part A and a part B to some of these. Okay. Now, as everybody knows, if you've listened to the podcast for any length of time, we get to it right away. We don't have like 17 minutes of fluffy fluff that you got to scrub through. We get to it right away. That's part of our value with the podcast. So number one, batching. We've talked about it in previous episodes, but we're going to take a little bit of time. Take it away.
Yeah. So this idea is really that you would take the same set of group or task and put them all at the same time so that you can focus on that and crank something out. And so you can do it really with anything. Let's say it's preparing for weekend services. Well, instead of you like feverishly Friday before the weekend, preparing whatever you need, printing all the copies, what you would do is you would choose a day early on in the month and you would prepare everything for that month. You would batch it all into 1 4-hour time block and you would get that all done. And now you go, check mark, done for the month, right? And the reason you do that is because when you batch something together like that, you put your brain and your focus into a mode in which you're just doing that task, and it brings efficiency to the task.
That's exactly right. I do this with postcards. I actually pre-prepare postcards for an entire year. I take half or 3/4 of one day of my life, and I would batch, and I would put sticky labels. I would print them all off. I would cut them all up. I would put stamps on every single one of them, and just the rote ability of just putting stamps. And it's like so mind numbing, but I do all of the mind numbing stuff, but I'm really fast at that mind numbing stuff. And I get into a zone where I'm just kind of put on the thing, do the thing. And I do it over and over and over. And the efficiency factor causes me to get way more done. And then later on, I can put my heart, not my hands. My hands have already done all the repetitive tasks. Now I can put my heart toward writing a special note to somebody.
Yeah, I love that. One thing outside of ministry that I do is I do this with cooking sometimes.
Oh, really?
So like on Sunday night, I will let's say we're gonna have grilled chicken breast on Sunday night. Well, instead of just preparing that one meal, I go, what am I going to need for lunches this week? Well, chicken breast can be turned into a lot of meals, right?
Yes.
So instead of just cooking the 4 we need for our family, I get the family pack, and I already have the grill up. I already have the grill going. It's already hot. I already have the seasoning. I get all the chicken, and I cook like 12 chicken breasts, right?
Yes.
And then what I do is I take them, and now I have them. Sometimes I've even done like individual containers. I'm like 1 chicken breast here, 1 chicken breast here, 1 chicken breast here, 1 chicken breast here. And now I have grab and go lunch for the whole week. And I only had to do all of that setup to cook those chicken breasts. I only had to start the grill once, and I only had to do the cleanup once instead of doing it 12 different times.
Okay, brother. This is like we're gonna have to have a whole episode on food prep, because like I used to do a thing called cook for a day, eat for a month.
I love it.
And I would literally have all of these little individualized containers, and I would mass produce salmon, and I'd weigh it out, and I would go 3.5 ounces, 3.5 ounces, 3.5 ounces. And I do that for so 5 days a week for an entire month. And I would literally prepare all of my meals. And so people used to make fun of me. I'm like, well, I really don't care. I'm eating way healthier than you, and I'm way more efficient than you. So we could have a whole episode on batching, but keep going.
Well, I think the other thing that we haven't talked about before as much is what this actually cuts down on as well is something called decision fatigue.
Ooh.
And so like decision fatigue is when you only have so much decision-making like bandwidth in a day. You only have so much willpower that you can exercise in one day, right?
It's true.
And so as you get towards the end of the day, you've exhausted all of that and you don't want to make any more decisions. You ever get home from a really busy ministry season and somebody's like, what do you want for dinner? And you're like, don't talk to me. I don't want to decide, just put food in my mouth, right?
Right.
And I think moms experience this a lot. Like,
my wife experiences it all the time.
Yeah, don't make me make another decision. I just don't want to do this anymore, right? But when you batch things, you've now already answered the decision for a ton of work, right? You don't have to rethink of when I'm going to do this because it's already done. And so batching can really help that way.
Oh, man, there's so much about batching. And by the way, thank you, Henry Ford, for coming up with the assembly line, which was absolutely a person doing one task on repeat. Okay, number 2, we had batching, but number 2 is, this is such a genius one. And Rory Vaden, R-O-R-Y Vaden, V-A-D-E-N, is one of my favorite productivity authors. And he makes a great point that you can actually you can be so productive by simply saying no to things that are going to cut into your productivity. So the idea of just saying no to something. Okay, take it away, Bill.
Yeah, I mean, this is a skill I think people have to learn because most people in ministry are people who want to like get along and be agreeable about things. They're team players. Like these are characteristics of people in ministry often, and so we get in this mode of like, well, it's for the kingdom. So I always have to say yes. I always have to be the yes man, right? There's that movie with Jim Carrey where he says yes about everything.
Yeah, that's really a funny concept, right?
Yeah, and it's like put in a positive light, like, oh, look at all these opportunities that come to you. But it actually can be far more valuable to learn how to say no. And actually, we should be saying no to the point where we regret saying no to certain things. That's actually a healthy thing. And here's why. Because you can only concentrate on so many things at a time. And if you say yes and you spread yourself really thin, you're not going to be as efficient as you need to be. You're not going to be as effective as you need to be in the kingdom.
Yes.
And so you really have to figure out, like, if I'm going to say yes, does this actually move the needle forward for the kingdom work that Jesus has asked me to do personally?
And I would say, I always encourage ministry leaders to have a bias toward no.
Yes.
Have a bias toward no, because a really wonderful no is allowing you to have your greatest possible yes.
Yep. Absolutely.
So, yeah. The idea of no, go ahead.
Well, and just a strategy for this too is like have your first answer be no to almost everything. And then what you find out is you shouldn't be saying yes unless it's a heck yes. Right?
Yes.
So if you don't get like emotionally whipped up and excited for the opportunity that's before you, you should probably be saying no. If you think you're going to regret it at all in the future, you should not be saying yes.
Okay, I agree.
No.
I agree. And then somebody out there is going to say, yeah, but I'm like 3 tiers down on the ministry org chart. I don't really have a chance to say no. Okay, I've got 2 thoughts about that. Number 1, if you can be respectful and yet ask questions in such a way that cause other leaders to go, oh, this is kind of a half-baked idea. Yes, it's not fully baked yet. And for us as a church to say yes to this, here are the costs. And you have to be respectful because senior leaders, they don't want a subordinate to be a wet blanket or a Debbie Downer. There's all these different connotations, and you got to be very careful. It takes, this is chess, people. This ain't just regular old checkers. This is chess. And so there's a whole strategy behind how to persuade leaders. I wrote a course on it called Leading Up, how to lead up. So that's one. But the other piece is, yes, you may have to do some things that other people are telling you to do, but you also have your own set of ideas, and you should say no to some of your own ideas. Right?
It's so true.
Yeah.
I love absolutely when people tell me no in ministry, because I'm more of a visionary leader. And so I'll never forget, I had one time where my assistant for student ministry, I came up with this game and we were preparing for it. And then what we did was we got to this moment where it was right before youth group, and I was like, let's change the whole thing. Let's change the whole game. And I was like, I have this great idea, new vision. And my ministry assistant looked at me and she goes, we're not changing this right now. This is literally hours before youth group starts. We are not doing this. And I was like, you know what? You're right.
Okay.
You're absolutely right.
So 2 things. Let's have safeguards and people who can speak into our lives and we'll listen to. You follow what I'm saying? I mean, like all of a sudden, this comes back to a previous podcast where we're educating our kids how to give pushback to us in our decisions.
Yes.
Well, thank goodness that your administrative assistant didn't feel like the emotional beatdown and the I can't speak up to my boss. Okay, if you live in a culture like that, somebody needs slapped. I got to tell you what. Okay.
Yeah.
Now, Bill, talk to us about the 2-minute rule. Okay, we talked about batching. We talked about saying no. Let's go to the 2-minute rule.
Yeah, this one's super simple. So the idea behind this is if a task takes 2 minutes or less, you should do it right now. That's all it is. And the idea behind this is like it actually begins to train you to not procrastinate on easy tasks. Because what a lot of times ministry leaders get sucked into is, oh, it's just going to take me too long. I'll just do it later. I'll just do it later, right? They're hating their future selves,
yes,
right?
Yes.
But if it takes 2 minutes or less, you should do it immediately.
I agree with this. Now, the interesting thing is, yes, do it immediately, or be so strategic that you're like, ooh, now, here's what I did, Bill, and I want you to push back on me and tell me what you think of this. I know my primo spots. I know my prime time get stuff done. It is between like 7:30 a.m. and 1:30, maybe 2 p.m. 2:30 p.m. to 5 p.m. I'm very low on productivity. I'm running out of gas. I'm not. I could pick it back up later in the evening, but I'm not going to get much done during those times. So what I would do is I would put tasks that were not 2-minute tasks, what were hour to hour and a half to 2-hour tasks in the morning where I was primo. And if a 2-minute task came up, I'm like, okay, fantastic. I'm going to crush that at 2:30 p.m. where I don't have, because a 2-minute task is something that I can crush, but doesn't take that much from me.
Oh, I like that. Yeah, that's a little bit different concept. But I love that. Like that's actually, and this is kind of productivity next level, what you're talking about, is that you actually begin to learn what your rhythm and focus time is as an individual, and you begin to like carve out those times so that you can be your best possible self for that task.
Yes. And so therefore, I did take on all kinds of 2-minute tasks, but I took care of them at a later time where because usually 2-minute tasks don't take extreme brain power from me.
Right. Absolutely. Yeah.
But I have to say, I am behind the idea of get it done now. So there's both and on that one. Okay, talk to us about this one. I have no idea. You teed this one up. I am so in the dark about this one. Go ahead.
Okay, so
I don't even know how to pronounce it. Okay.
So it's time blocking, and then there's a technique called Pomodoro. Okay, and the idea behind this is the human brain can only focus intensely for a set amount of time, and then you need a break. You actually become less efficient if you try to overextend yourself in terms of your focus and your attention. And so the idea is I actually have this timer. This is the number one thing that people ask me when they come into my office. They look at this thing and they're like, what is that thing? Because it sits on my desk. And this thing it's a timer. And if I actually turn it, it can change the time. Okay.
Okay.
So I will set it to 25 minutes. And I press the button. That's not 25 minutes, but I press the button.
I'm going to switch. I'm going to unmirror your camera if I can do that.
Okay. Yep.
I can't do that. Keep going.
So as it counts down, it's probably backwards, but as it counts down, now I have a visual for how much time I'm working on this task. I block out everything for that 25 minutes. Nothing will stop me. I put on my headphones. I put on binaural beats so that I can focus, and I crank out for 25 minutes of my rapt attention on one thing. When that timer goes off, I am done. My brain goes, okay, I did 25 minutes of this, and I reset the timer to 5 minutes. And during that 5 minutes of rest, it's intentional rest. I get up, I go take a drink of water, I talk with my co-workers, I walk around the building once, I do some jumping jacks,
you get
whatever
legs
it's going to take.
Yeah,
whatever it's going to take to get my mind off of focus attention that I just did. And then I sit back down another 25 minutes. And whatever task it is, if it's a large task that I have to do, like writing a sermon, for instance, I do this in these chunks, and it pulls me through that whole process. And there are sometimes I get done with that 25 minutes and I'm like, I just want to keep going. I'm just rolling, but that's good because that means you didn't overextend your attention. If you get done with the 25 minutes and you're like, my brain hurts.
Then take that 5.
Yes,
take that
you
5.
need to take the 5. Yes.
Okay. So say the word again. Time blocking.
Pomodoro.
Now I got to show you.
Pomodoro.
Take a look here.
Oh yeah. The analog version.
The analog version is a legitimate.
I love it.
So if you're not watching on YouTube, this is an hourglass, and this is a 15-minute little sand hourglass that I got at Target. And now, Bill, it's funny that you're bringing this up because I have actually done this, and I set it, and then I look up and I'm like, oh, dude, don't stop. Keep going. And I have the noise canceling headphones on. I have my phone on, focus mode where only my wife can break in if some emergency happens, right? But I'm pretending as if I'm on an airplane. Why an airplane? Because you can't really stand up and go pee that easily on an airplane. You don't really get interrupted, and you can get tons of work done. So I seek to mimic the conditions of an airplane. And when I look up and I see this right here, and it is still black right here, that means that I still got more time. And then there are times where I have come up for air when it's all the way done. And I look at it and I'm like, dude, I'm still totally in the zone. Go, just like you said. Or there are times where I'm like, okay, good. I don't even know necessarily when the thing had emptied out because there is no alarm. But when I look up and see it's empty, I'm like, okay, stand up, take a break, go walk outside, get some fresh air, and then I can reset and do it all over again. So I actually have done this, even though I don't know the Pomodoro term.
let me tell you the easy hack for people who are like, great, now I have to go get a timer or an hourglass.
Sure.
The easy hack is on YouTube. You can actually just search this.
Okay.
You can just search it. The Podomoro, like search it. And there's actually ones that will take you through this process. It plays 25 minutes of like music for you to focus. And then it's like, it'll like beep and it'll be like, okay, break time.
Okay, so
really,
this exists. There's the low key version, brother. We're gonna have to have a volume 1, 2, and 3, or we're only on number 3, right? But I like this. I've done this before. I do believe this is a great hack. Okay, number 5, delegate.
Yeah, I mean, this one is one we just talk about all the time, right?
Mm-hmm.
This is like figure out what task have systems involved with them, things you do over and over and over again, and give them to other people, essentially.
Yes.
Empower others to do them.
Yes. And I got to say, I have an entire video in the lead ministry course called Multiply that is called Dump, Delegate, or Disciple Making.
Mm-hmm.
And you can think that you're delegating, but you're simply dumping.
Yep.
And the difference between delegating and dumping is that delegating has detail.
Mm-hmm.
And delegating has make it look just like this. Do this. Here are the steps. And then the difference between delegating and disciple making is that you're actually putting your full person into. You're not just handing them a rote sheet that is dialed in for task recreation. You're actually giving them a rote sense of task recreation, and you're putting in your own personal self into this as well. So definitely delegate. We get that one.
Yeah, people don't like that one because what it comes down to is they want to control everything.
Yep.
And so that requires you to let go of your control is delegating. So that's something you have to learn in ministry.
That is true. You have to control that one. You have to really think through what can someone else do. And by the way, there are a lot of people out there, Bill, who really do hunger and desire to put their gifts and abilities into ministry. And it is the control freaks who are robbing somebody else of laying up treasure in heaven.
Amen. Amen.
You're stealing. You're a ministry ball hog.
It's true. It's true.
And if you can just get over yourself and say, hey, there is a way that somebody else can do this, but it's not 95% perfect. Well, guess what, Connie? You need to get off your little freak out high horse here and give somebody some permission to do ministry. It's less about your way. It's more about involving others in the way.
Mm-hmm.
Well, here's the deal, Bill. I actually think that we should have a part 2 to this. And we have 10 of these. We've just covered 5. Is there anything that you want to review as it relates to delegate, to time blocking Pomodoro, to the 2-minute rule, to saying no, or to batching? Any other thoughts that you would have about any of these that you were like, oh, I wanted to say that, but...
No, I would just say for all of these, it's one of those things, and I say this a lot. I feel like I'm always saying this, but we have to take on this overall attitude that we are still learners. You don't have everything figured out. You're not a set of things. You need to be a learner. And so my suggestion to you, if you've heard these and you're like, okay, that's interesting, start trying these, implement them in your ministry, and learn how you're going to use them for time efficiency in your ministry.
Yes. And I would say especially, now here's the thing. I know there's been some pushback that I've had in the past where people are like, hey, yeah, but ministry's not just about tasks, Josh, it's about people. Oh, I totally get it. But guess what? Ministry is filled with tasks. And so if I can efficiently get tasks done and get them done well and get them done right, I have just afforded myself an opportunity to be with people.
Amen. It's not an either or.
No, it is not.
And.
It is both and. And guess what? People can't be scaled. People is a one-on-one thing. And if I am tied down in the minutia of tasks that ministry requires, and ministry requires a lot of tasks and a lot of administration. If I can efficiently do administration, I am now freed up to do human work, which is truly the call. I am not called to push paper. I got to push paper so that I can do efficient and good people work. So if I can do my paper pushing really powerfully, then I'm going to be far more teed up and fully present for human beings.
Amen. Amen.
Well, gang, this is good. We're going to close this one off. We're going to come back to you with part 2 of time hacks for busy ministry leaders. We'll catch you guys on the next one.
And that's a wrap for today's episode of Lead Ministry Podcast. Don't forget to subscribe and leave us a review. Make sure to follow us on Facebook and Instagram, and visit leadvolunteers.com for more episodes and resources. Thanks for listening.